The father once kicked him out of the house over a secret no one dared to speak out loud. 15 years later, that same man was standing at his son's doorstep in the freezing rain. Want to know what that secret was and who that abandoned boy grew up to be after all those years? Stick with us for this emotional, gut-wrenching story. Kentwood, Ohio had exactly one barbershop, 2 gas stations, and a tiny community hall right in the middle of town. If you lived here, you knew who just bought a new car, who got divorced, and which families had kids who were considered not normal. The Hamilton family sat right at the top of that town's model citizens list. Nathan's father, Paul Hamilton, was head of the local community board. He spoke at town meetings with a deep, firm voice and a cold stare anytime he brought up moral decay or deviant lifestyles. His mother, Lorraine, taught middle school English. She always dressed modestly and baked cookies during the holidays to hand out to the neighbors. They had 2 kids, Nathan, their only son, and Lily, 2 years younger. Lily was the only one in the family Nathan felt like he could actually breathe around. At 17, Nathan looked like he came straight out of a church handbook. Good grades, never broke the rules, always bowed his head before meals. But inside, it was all gray. Something silent, thick, and ready to explode right out of his chest. And then Jacob showed up. Not in some flashy way. He wasn't the kind of guy who stood out, but there was something about him that made the quiet in Nathan's head suddenly come alive. They sat together in 11th grade U.S. history, partnered up for a few group projects, and somehow they just stuck. Jacob was the son of Don, Nathan's dad's old college buddy. His family went to church too, but they weren't extreme about it. He played guitar, liked building robot kits, and had a girlfriend back in 9th grade, but it never really went anywhere. Both of them knew there was something different, not like the rest of their classmates, and definitely not like what their parents expected. They didn't rush into anything. No love letters, no sneaking around in cars, just light touches when one walked past the other. Conversations that lasted past midnight on a messaging app. Moments after school, sitting side by side in silence, not saying a word, but neither of them wanting to leave. Only Lily knew. Nathan told her one winter night when she snuck into his room to borrow his headphones. She looked at him for a long moment and simply said, "I don't think it's wrong to like someone, but you need to be careful, especially with Dad." Their father didn't yell. He was the kind of man whose silence hit harder than shouting. And in this house, there were things you just didn't talk about. Ever. For over a year, Nathan lived in 2 worlds. By day, he was the pastor's model son. By night, he was himself, with Jacob, even if it was just through a phone screen. Every time he laughed with Jacob, he felt lighter, but also more afraid. Afraid that if anyone found out, everything would come crashing down. Not just his life, but his father's faith, his preaching career, and that polished, perfect family image the church kept putting in the monthly bulletin. One time, Jacob joked, "If we ever get caught, who do you think gets kicked out first?" Nathan just laughed. But that night, he couldn't sleep. It was a hot June evening. Nathan was in the living room studying with Lily. They were arguing over whether she should take music or art class. Their parents were still out at a church board meeting. Lily burst out laughing when Nathan did an impression of her cranky old music teacher. "You're such a disaster," she said, heading off to grab some orange juice. Nathan forgot what he was doing, tossed his iPad onto the couch, and went upstairs to grab his charger. He didn't think twice, just a habit. But the screen was still on, still open to his messages with Jacob from the day before. The last lines read, "Jacob, I still don't get why the world hates what makes us happy. Maybe because they've never dared to love for real." The screen wasn't locked. The messages weren't deleted. And the iPad was still there, right on the chair where his dad always sat. Nathan didn't know that when he went upstairs to grab his charger, the gears of fate had already started to turn. When he came back down, the air had completely shifted. His father was standing in the middle of the living room. The iPad lay face down on the table, a crack slicing across the screen from the top corner to the home button. His mother sat frozen on the couch, hands clenched together, face pale as a sheet. Lily stood in the corner, eyes locked on him, a silent warning. "Too late. Sit down," his dad said. The voice wasn't loud, but it was ice cold. Nathan didn't move. His whole body went rigid. He wasn't exactly sure what had just happened, but part of him knew all too well. You know why I called you down here? His father's eyes never left his face. Nathan swallowed hard. His heart was beating so fast he couldn't speak. No answer? His dad's voice was tightening. Then let me read it to you. His father picked up the iPad, dragging each message up like pulling out pieces of evidence. Maybe because they've never dared to love for real, he repeated, slow, deliberate, each word cutting through the silence like a blade. Who do you love, Nathan? Dad. Answer me. His voice was low, sharp, and forceful. Nathan clenched his fists, unable to meet his father's eyes. I love Jacob. The sound of something shattering cracked through the room like a gunshot. His dad had thrown the iPad against the wall. Plastic and glass scattered across the floor. His mom let out a short gasp. Lily shut her eyes tight. Kneel. He didn't shout, but the word came out like it was ripped from his throat. Dad, kneel. Nathan slowly dropped to his knees, head down, heart pounding out of rhythm. His eyes burned, but he hadn't cried. Not yet. My son, the son of a pastor, doing this sick, twisted thing under my roof? He stepped closer, his shadow stretching over Nathan. This is what you've been hiding from me all this time? Dad, I didn't do anything wrong. Nothing wrong? He let out a sharp, bitter laugh. You bring that filth into this house, defile a place where the Lord dwells, and you call that nothing wrong? His mother still said nothing, just sat there, hands locked together, lips pressed so tight they'd gone pale. His father turned to Lily. Call Jacob's family. Tell them to come here, now. Dad, no. Nathan looked up, panic rising in his voice. Please, don't drag them into this. Too late, he said. If you two are grown enough to do something that disgusting, you're grown enough to face it. 15 minutes later, Jacob's family arrived. His parents stood just inside the door, stiff and silent. Jacob came in last. When their eyes met, Nathan felt his chest crack open. Jacob didn't say a word. His eyes were red, fists clenched, lips pressed tight like he was swallowing something heavy. Don, Nathan's father began, I trusted you and your family, but your son and mine have been hiding this from us, doing something disgraceful behind our backs. Paul, I think we should try to stay calm. Calm? He whipped around, furious. My son is in love with your son. Do you know what they've done together? Jacob stepped forward. We didn't do anything wrong. Shut your mouth. Nathan's father barked. You're filth. Get out of my house before I do something I'll regret. Dad, Nathan shouted, don't talk to him like that. And you, shut your mouth. He turned on Nathan, face burning red. I've never felt shame like I do today. What did I raise you with? Morals, scripture, and now you stand there defending someone like him? Jacob looked at Nathan one last time. It wasn't angry, it wasn't bitter. It was pain, deep pain. Then he turned away. No words, no tears, no goodbye. Just silence as he walked out the door and disappeared. Jacob, Nathan whispered, but the words caught in his throat. The door closed behind him like a final period. Nathan collapsed onto the floor, shoulders shaking. He didn't remember when the tears started, only that someone, maybe Lily, placed a hand gently on his shoulder, then pulled away. Please, Dad, don't do this. I didn't mean to do anything wrong. I just loved someone. Loved someone? His father spat on the floor. That kind of love doesn't exist in my house. You're a disgrace. You're shame. From this moment on, I don't have a son named Nathan. No one said a word after that. His mother stayed frozen like a statue. Lily cried quietly. Nathan stayed on his knees, tears streaming, chest hollow, like someone had reached in and pulled out everything inside him. The house felt like a morgue. And that silence, that unbearable silence, was what Nathan would remember most in the years that followed. The next morning, it was like nothing had happened. His mom made breakfast. His dad was already gone. Lily sat across from Nathan, silent. No one mentioned last night. No one mentioned Jacob. But everything had changed. Nathan's phone was taken, his laptop too. He wasn't allowed to leave the house on his own, not even for school. His daily schedule was handwritten by his mother and taped to the fridge, ending with a bold, all-caps line, "Do not leave after school ends." Every move he made was monitored. When he got home, which bus he took, who he talked to, all double-checked by either Lily or his mom. His dad never said another word, just gave him that frozen, dead-eyed stare every time they passed in the hallway. One night, Nathan left his bedroom light on past 11. The next morning, the bulb was gone. No one yelled. No one hit him. But the silence pressed down like stone. His mother didn't defend him, didn't confront him either. She just cleaned, cooked, answered only when necessary. Once Nathan tried to reach out. "Mom, I just need to know what you think about all this." She looked up from a pile of dishes. "I don't think anything. I just want things to go back to the way they were." Back to the way they were? There was no back. Nothing was the same anymore. Jacob vanished from town like he'd never existed. No one knew what school he transferred to. Nathan's old friends started keeping their distance. A few stared in the hallways, whispered behind his back, using words grown-ups never taught them. One day in chemistry, someone slid a folded piece of paper onto his desk. He opened it and read, "Nathan likes boys. Watch your locker, fag." He crumpled the note, stuffed it into his pocket, and said nothing. The teacher didn't notice, or maybe she did, and chose not to. At home, the weight got heavier. His dad still read the newspaper every night, but wouldn't let Nathan stay in the same room. Lily was the only one who still met his eyes. Every night, she knocked on his door. Sometimes she didn't say anything, just sat on the floor, back against the wall, quietly sharing a pair of headphones. "I don't understand all of it, I know," she whispered once, "but I think, if it's real, if you really love Jacob, then I don't think it's wrong." Nathan didn't respond. He was too afraid that if he opened his mouth, he'd break down and cry. 2 years passed like that. No one touched the past. But it hung there, suspended, like a knife dangling from the ceiling. His dad never brought it up again, but Nathan knew he hadn't forgiven him. And maybe never would. Every college application was monitored. Nathan wasn't allowed to apply anywhere far. Every school on his list had to be within a 30-minute drive. "You don't leave this house until you're mature enough," his dad said. Nathan nodded, but in his head he started counting down. Counting the days until he turned 18. Counting the nights Lily slipped a few spare dollars into his old shoebox. Counting the weeks until he requested a copy of his diploma from the school office. "For personal records," he said. Lily got it. No need to explain. That night, it rained lightly. Nathan packed a few changes of clothes into a backpack. His documents were sealed in a Ziploc bag. In his pocket, $263, the money Lily had saved over 2 years, mostly from weekend tips at the bakery. She hugged him quick, then stepped back, saying only, "Text me when you get there. I'll block the messages so Mom and Dad won't see." Nathan walked to the interstate bus stop just before midnight. No heavy luggage, no goodbyes. The bus arrived on time. He paid in cash, chose a seat in the back, by the window. As the bus rolled out of Kentwood, he didn't look back. Not because he didn't care, but because he knew. If he looked, he might not be able to let go. In front of him was a road with no map, no guarantees, and no one waiting at the other end. But at least it was a place where no one knew his name. No one knew who he had loved. No one would ever force him to kneel. New York didn't welcome Nathan with open arms. It greeted him with car horns, the stench of garbage smoke, and 3 nights sleeping on a park bench near the bus terminal. On his first day, he ate a burger, bought with the last few dollars in his pocket. On the second, he landed a job mopping floors at a convenience store in the Bronx. Night shift, paid in cash, no questions about paperwork. The first few weeks were a blur of hunger, exhaustion, and fear. Nathan wasn't even sure what he was surviving for. But every time he thought about giving up, he saw Lily's eyes the night he left. He heard his father's final words. And somehow, that kept him going. A Puerto Rican guy named Manny, the rough-edged owner of an old woodshop in Brooklyn, was the first person to give Nathan a real shot. He was short-tempered, chain-smoked, and cursed constantly. But when he caught Nathan staring at the interior design sketches on the wall, he just said, "You want to learn? Clean out that damn storage room first, then I'll show you." Nathan didn't learn the trade from books. He learned by sweeping every corner of the shop, eavesdropping while Manny taught the younger workers how to saw, how to measure, how to match stains. He learned to read blueprints, tell the difference between plywood and MDF, and use a laser level without being off by half an inch. By day, he worked. By night, he squeezed into a cramped shared room with 3 other guys, ate instant noodles, read free materials online, and filled notebooks with design concepts like a survivalist feeding on knowledge. When he finally had enough money, the right papers, and the courage, Nathan applied to a community college to study interior design. The acceptance letter came on a day of heavy rain. He had to run 3 blocks, soaked head to toe, just to get it from the shared mailbox in his building. He broke down crying when he saw his name on it. Not from joy, but because after all those years, someone had finally said, "You can start over." In his second year of college, he picked up work on a small diner redesign project in Queens. The team supervisor was Alex, a freelance architect, 7 years older, dark brown hair, wore glasses, quiet, and always fixed his collar when he was nervous. Alex didn't pry. He just taught patiently, corrected Nathan's drafts, and sometimes left small pencil notes like, "Might want to round this corner, less chance of customers bumping into it." After that project, they started having lunch together, sometimes ramen, sometimes cold chicken sandwiches. It wasn't dating, just eating. But Nathan realized, for the first time in his life, he felt safe sitting across from someone without having to hide any part of who he was. They officially became a couple a year later. There was no confession, no candlelit dinner. Just one evening when Alex said, "If you don't feel like going back to that apartment tonight, you can stay." And Nathan stayed. Their first place together was a tiny studio in Astoria. You could hear the train pass every hour, and the walls were so thin, the sound of the neighbor's faucet felt like it was in their kitchen. But to Nathan, it was heaven compared to anywhere he'd ever lived. From freelancing on blueprints, designing logos, and building 3D renderings for others, Nathan gradually built a client base of his own. At first, it was friends of Alex, then small restaurant owners. Eventually, a chain of furniture stores hired him to redesign all their interiors. 3 years later, Nathan launched his own firm, a small office on the second floor of an old building in Brooklyn. No flashy sign, no big marketing campaign, but the clients who came in were people he had worked with before, and they came back. He named it North Hollow Studio. No one knew what it meant. Only Lily did. It was the name of the 2 streets that crossed near their old house, where Nathan and Jacob first held hands in the dark. Any contact from Kentwood, he refused. Christmas cards from relatives, messages from old classmates, strange numbers calling his phone, all blocked. Only one person was ever allowed through. Lily, the girl who used to sneak him spare change, is now a nursing intern, living over 800 miles away. But every month, she still sends one message: "You doing okay?" Nathan doesn't always reply, but he never deletes them. He keeps those texts like fragments of a past he's not ready to face, but can't bring himself to let go of. Life slowly settled into a kind of calm Nathan never thought he'd have. A 2-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, not big, but bright and quiet. His own design studio 3 days a week. And someone beside him he never had to hide from. Alex was still the same, quiet, observant, able to make chaos seem simple with just a nod. They weren't the kind of couple who showed off affection. No joint selfies, no loud anniversaries. But every morning there was coffee ready. And every night, a knock on the bathroom door followed by a towel handed in. It had been nearly 10 years since Nathan left Kentwood. Lily kept in touch like clockwork, as regular as a 6-month dental checkup. Never too many questions. Just a few lines. "Dad's blood pressure's up. Mom just changed meds. They're okay. My daughter just started walking. Here's a pic." Nathan would read it, save the photo, type a quick thanks, then go silent again. Sometimes 2 weeks passed before he replied. But Lily never got upset. She understood. And that was enough. That afternoon, Nathan was tweaking a floor plan for an office interior project when his phone rang. Unknown number. Area code looked familiar, but no name. He hesitated for a second, then picked up. "Hello?" No answer at first. Just soft breathing. Then a voice, slow, shaky, hoarse. "Nathan?" He froze, hand gripping the edge of the table. No need for names. He knew instantly. "It's Mom." He didn't say a word. Silence stretched between them. Then softly, "Your dad, he's very sick. Stage 4 cancer." The pause that followed was heavy. Nathan could hear his heartbeat, loud enough it felt like the whole building might hear it too. His mother took a breath. "I know you don't want to hear this, but if you can, I'd like to see you, just once." He pressed his fingers to the bridge of his nose and turned away from the window. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," she replied. "I just want to see you." That's all. Nathan stared at the phone screen. No one was forcing him. There was no pressure, but also no clear reason why he hadn't already hung up. Finally, he exhaled and said, "Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Send a message if you need directions." He hung up. No more words. No goodbye. That night, Nathan didn't tell Alex everything. Just said someone's coming over tomorrow. Client? Not exactly. Let's call it an old connection. Alex didn't ask, just nodded. The next morning, Nathan tidied up the living room. Not like he was hosting someone important. Just folded the blanket on the couch, stacked the design magazines, and tucked away the half-finished sketches in a drawer. He stood in the middle of the room for a long time. Then walked into the kitchen and took out one more glass. Placed it on the table. Not too much, not too little. The sky started to darken around 4. No rain yet, but the smell of it hung in the wind. Nathan sat in his chair watching the window. Not anxious, not expectant, but unable to stay still. The doorbell rang the moment the minute hand touched 12. Nathan stood up, walked over, not rushing, not dragging his feet. The rain had started, cold, light, steady. And behind that door stood the people he hadn't seen in 15 years. Nathan opened the door. The rain kept falling, light and steady, speckling their shoulders. His father stood in the center, visibly older. His frame thinner, hair streaked with gray, his posture hunched, like he'd aged a decade in a single winter. His mother stood to the right, eyes swollen and red, fingers clenched tightly around the strap of her handbag. Lily stood on the left, holding his father's arm, part support, part anchor, as if to keep him from turning around. No one said a word. His mother's eyes swept past the doorway, taking in the apartment behind him. The ash-gray sofa, the oak bookshelf, a few design prints hung just slightly off balance on purpose, and a small photo frame face down on the table. Nathan didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't smile. He stood tall, one hand resting on the doorframe, eyes steady, unblinking. Lily was the first to give a slight nod. Their mother took half a step forward, then paused, like waiting for something, or someone, to allow it. Their father remained silent, eyes locked on Nathan's face, like he was staring at a stranger, searching for something familiar in each feature. Nathan tilted his head slightly, glanced over his shoulder. His voice was clear, steady. "Alex, bring out another cup. We've got guests." The faint sound of glass clinking came from the kitchen. Then silence. He stepped aside. Said nothing more. All three walked in, slowly, cautiously. No one met his eyes a second time. They sat down on the couch, coats still on. The scent of rain and something worn settled into the room. Nathan pulled out a chair across from them, sat, fingers interlaced. Lily spoke first, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid it might shatter. "I'm the one who asked them to come. I thought you had a right to know." Nathan said nothing. His mother glanced at Lily, then looked back at him and spoke. "Your father doesn't have much time left. They found it too late. It's already spread." Silence. Nathan looked down at his hands, once thin and sharp from hunger, now full, sun-darkened. Hands that had built furniture, sketched on paper, rebuilt a life from zero. His mother continued, "I know there's nothing I can say today that could undo anything, but if it means anything at all, just seeing you, looking at you, is enough." His father still hadn't spoken. His eyes stayed on the table, occasionally flicking around the room. The gaze of a man who used to command every room he entered, and now couldn't find a place to stand. Lily gently placed her hand on his knee. He flinched. Then, slowly, very slowly, he pulled out his wallet. Inside was a faded photo, its corners bent, edges curled like they'd been soaked and dried again. He held it out toward Nathan, 2 fingers trembling. Nathan took the photo, studied it closely. It was him and Jacob, a shot from a school camping trip. Both smiling, cheeks pressed together, with a late August sky behind them. He remembered that day. Remembered the exact moment Jacob slipped his fingers between his own, just as the camera clicked. He looked up, eyes meeting his father's. "You kept this for 15 years?" His father gave a small nod. A second of silence stretched out like a held breath. Then Nathan set the photo down on the table, carefully, neatly. No rage, no emotion, just clarity. He locked eyes with the man who once forced him to kneel in the middle of the living room, who threw the first boy he ever loved out the door like he was trash, who once said, "From now on, I don't have a son named Nathan." Nathan's voice dropped low, each word sharp, deliberate, like a blade slicing clean. You cast me out because I loved with everything I had. Today you had to ask permission just to step inside my home." No one said a word. His mother lowered her eyes. Lily gently squeezed their father's hand. For the first time since stepping into the room, he blinked. His lips pressed together tight, like he was holding something back. And in that moment, he nodded, small but real. Alex stepped out from the kitchen, holding a tray with 3 glasses. He placed them on the table one by one, carefully, then stood beside Nathan. He didn't say anything, didn't need to. Nathan stayed still, didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't forgive. But he didn't turn them away either. That was it. A room, a quiet rain, a past that once shattered, now sitting across from a present that had healed, but still carried the scar. And Nathan, for the first time in many years, didn't feel like someone asking to be let in. He just sat there, like a man who had walked through an entire life and finally arrived. Whoever you are, whoever you love, whether you grew up in a house that taught you to stay silent or in a town that never had the words for what you feel, you still deserve to be loved. Not the kind of love with conditions. Not, "I accept you, just don't let anyone find out." But real love, the kind where you don't have to kneel to exist, don't have to lie to stay, don't have to apologize for being exactly who you are. Nathan spent nearly his whole youth chasing something that should have been simple. A place where no one pushes you out for simply being yourself. And maybe this story is for you too. If you've ever believed no one would understand, no one would care, no one would reach out when you finally showed up. Someone will. They do. Maybe not right away, maybe not the ones you hoped, but someone will. Even if it's someone new. Even if, one day, it's someone who once made you feel like you didn't belong. So ask yourself this. If someone you love came to you and said they were different from what you always thought, what would you do? Would you choose to love them or choose to lose them? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe this story matters, if you think someone out there needs to hear it, hit like, subscribe, and share it with them. Because maybe, just maybe, one click from you could be the reason someone out there feels a little less alone.